When people migrate, whether they migrate within the country of America or migrate to another country, they're usually migrating for material goods, for economic reasons. Not 100 percentile, but on average, that is the reason why most people migrate. And, we're looking here today and we're seeing kind of an assault on freedom of speech and really an assault on logic and reason. And these individuals that want to assault logic and reason do seem to have control over things. And there are people within the margins, within that community, who are in the margins, who are being marginalized, who do have legitimate grievances, but can still be wrong. Because it's wrong to marginalize one section of society and not do the same. That is just the truth. Yes, Donnie. Okay, and yeah, there is a there is a fight brewing, or not really a fight, but there's some trolling going on with a guest that I had. For whatever reason, I do have people who are on the left side, and there are people, some on the right side of the margins. The fans that I have on the right side of the margins are not necessarily as vocal. So the ones on the left side of the margins are a tad more vocal, and some of them are just there to joke around and I guess try to be funny. But that's not me, but yeah, someone by the name of Dawning Armor, whatever, a foul name. And I put the last show on private just because I just didn't want the vulgarity and the swearing. That is somewhat part of who I am, but that's not what I want to be part of the show. And the show, I kind of want to put out my best self. I have a vulgar self. I have a vile self, but that's not what I want to put forward in my show. I don't want vulgarity. I do want open and honest discussion on all levels. And it's something that happens less and less on social media, just due to the fact that extremists, primarily on the left side, do not want certain topics discussed openly and honestly. And it is just the way it is. So the man of the West, if you are a man living in Western culture, if you are a young man, you do find it harder. Oh, well, yeah. And I want to mention this yesterday night show. The show Dawning Armor was on, I do have up. It was another show. I did a show last night, and I just decided to not keep that one around. Just not not the best, and I just don't want uh, things like that, and I don't want any kind of vulgarity on. I mean, I want to strive to keep less vulgarity on my show than I can. And it was a show with Howard on there, and Howard likes to deviate on things, and he says things that are true, but he says things uh, that are very speculative and not necessarily based on fact. And I don't mind being inflammatory if it's a hard truth, but if it's just speculative, if it's just something that's speculative and not based on real evidence, and it's just inflammatory to be inflammatory, I'm not interested in that. That serves no purpose. I believe that you can tell people hard truths, and they'll, and a lot of reasonable people will accept them. But if you tell people just inflammatory stuff that has no basis in fact, and I'll just say this, that the one thing that Howard said was that that the blacks here were different. Were different than they got the worst part, and they're different than the blacks who are in Africa who sold them. They actually sold them the worst part, and that's, to me, just something to be said to be inflammatory, and there's no basis in truth of that. And I'm not interested in that kind of dialogue. It serves no purpose, because where's your proof of that? All right, we have Joe here. Joe, do you have anything to say on this wonderful Tuesday morning or afternoon?
Well, it's not morning, but no, not yet. I just joined in. I'm not even sure where you were going yet, but I'll just catch up as you go along.
Well, thank you, Joe. But I just want to talk about, if you are a male within the society, things seem to have gotten a lot tougher. And I'm not saying that things aren't tough for women. I think things are sometimes tough for humanity all the way around. But if you look at the homeless population, think over 70, maybe 80 to 90% of the people that are homeless are males. And, if you want to get down to the nitty and the gritty, like if you go down to Skid Row, the majority of the people on Skid Row are males, and they happen to be black males. But yeah, you are really within the margins of this society. And if you are a male of European descent, you are called a colonizer and an evil person for the things that happened in the past. And none of us were there to what happened. I have a family member who is kind of part of that woke philosophy. And she said something akin to, it was a black person saying, "Oh, you don't want me to call you colonizer? How about I call you colonizer?" And I almost wanted to put her back, saying, is there any talk back to this? This is very very defaming. I'm not a colonizer, and the person's not a slave. The Native Americans are no longer, these people aren't living in teepees anymore. I mean, none of that is around. Maybe certain effects are, but certain effects of the past are with all of us. And how do we get to a place of reason and logic if people are saying things that are very hyperbolic? And I feel that there is hyperbole on both ends, but I see it more on the left and more on the woke left than anywhere else. And I mean, you go to Europe, and I don't want to use. I'm trying not to use any foul language anymore. But there was a woman who was sexually assaulted, forcible sex, the R word. You know what the R word is for sexual assault. But from my understanding, this woman said that she did not want to report the case, or she was hesitant because she didn't want to hurt the migrant cause. So her own well-being was forfeited for her ideology. And that's not the type of ideology that is healthy or anything that I would want to be around, or any sane or logical person would want to be around. And there are a lot of people who are so stuck in their ideology that they cannot see past their ideology. And I've been accused of that. I don't see it, but I'm willing to take a look and examine it. And I also want to say, with anger and ego comes a dangerous place. Because sometimes when you feel self-righteous, you feel that you can attack the people that are doing bad things to you, but that sometimes will make the situation worse. Either they can defeat you in person physically, or they can defeat you within the court system. So you do have to be kind of savvy and intelligent when you're dealing with people. And if you just go on straight anger, like a chess game or a boxing match, you leave yourself open for counterattack. If you're just interested in attack and not defense, you leave yourself open for counterattack. I'm gonna leave the room open for Joe if he has anything to say about that.
So I'm not sure if you were talking about overall numbers of homelessness. I know here in California, the numbers have exploded in the last couple years. So they're off a bit, but prior to COVID, we were closing in on about 200,000 homeless here in California, and but the percentage of males is actually much lower, and it's not anywhere near 70%. It's closer to 50% in California. Now, many states have levels like what you're saying, like over 70%. But I was just talking about here more locally here in California.
Well, Joe, I would like to see the statistics on that. And Joe, can you see me right now? Because I'm going out. Oh, I was going out of the stream. I was wondering if you could see me because I went out of the stream. Did you notice that, Joe? I'm just going to ask. Well, he's not going back on.
Fine. My connection is a little weak.
So is mine. So is mine. But so you're saying, you know what? But the thing is, when I go out to downtown LA, or I go to a homeless shelter, and I've observed is just about all of them happen to be men. I think that there are better resources for women. And if I'm talking about homeless, the people out on the street who have to sleep on the cardboard or in the homeless shelters are who have to sleep in the most uncomfortable homeless shelters are males. Now, there may be a lot of women in cars. There may be a lot of women with men who are hooked up. But on average, I do believe that men live in the harshest conditions of homelessness. And I also want to add that that heterosexual males have unique problems today. I mean, look, there are unique problems with with gays and with lesbians, but there are also unique problems with heterosexuals, and there are unique problems with heterosexual males that really don't get addressed. Shame and humiliation, I think, might be different for heterosexual males than they are for heterosexual females or gay and lesbian people. I mean, you know, when a male who's heterosexual is poor, his options are far more limited than if he has resources and if he's in good shape and good condition. And I mean, I can remember, because I'm kind of chubby, I would go to when I was interested in that kind of thing and it was open, about 10 to 20 years ago, I went to a place where it was, for overweight people and those that admire them. And the men outnumbered the women, and the women who were overweight had far more choices than the men. And I remember arguing with another overweight female, and she said to me, and I won't use the word she said, I'll just use kind of a different word. She said, well, I do get guys, but they only want to fornicate me and leave me. And I thought to myself, and I kind of said, well, I wish I had the same problems that you have. I wish I had the same problems with women that you do with men, because I don't get any of that kind of play. Anyway, Joe, I'll leave the floor open to you if you have anything to add about what I have said. And Joe does have a bad connection. Joe, if you feel like jumping in, I will put myself on mute at any time.
So you're saying you'd like to be effed and left.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would prefer, as a young man who was looking for affection, I had that as a preference to getting nothing.
I'm sorry, man. My connection's really bad. I'm just going to try to fix it really quickly.
All right, as he tries to fix it really quickly, I'll just put out a few things here. Also, we have the On Together school shootings. I guess this is the new normal. And, I went, by the way, and this is kind of new, but I remember the place I worked at had an active shooter. They had active shooter drills. And they said the profile of an active shooter, and it was loner and like really sometimes politically obsessed, whether it be on the right or the left, but this is the profile of an active shooter. And I asked the question about psychotropic drugs and the drugs, what kind of drugs are these kids on? And the law enforcement officer said, well, I guess that might be a good topic, but we cannot talk about that subject. So the profile of an active shooter, they can talk about, but the drugs that they are on, we can't talk about. And maybe social media makes them worse. And we do live in a cancel culture age where people are basically thrown away, and they're thrown away without any kind of due process. And a lot of people say you're not in, the due process only applies to the courts. Well, teachers before they get fired, or if there's going to be a firing, teachers have a due process, and there is the right to be heard, and the right to kind of a jury of your peers, or at least the right to have your case, and then have something explained back to you to why this is happening. And on social media, they have a very bad due process system, and they're very hypocritical, and hypocrisy and gaslighting are things abusers do, and that seems what the establishment does. They gaslight and they practice hypocrisy, and that is not a good thing. And there are people who believe in this kind of hypocrisy. They think it's noble and they think it's good. And the thing to do is not to get angry about it, because the thing is, if you end up getting angry, people can say they're trying to make you angry, but in reality, they believe themselves to be right. And they believe themselves, on average, that they are doing the noble and good thing. And if you get angry for them, you're proving to them what you are. It doesn't mean tolerating their abuse. It means fighting smart and intelligent. I mean, there are times when you have to obey. If you're in a slavery situation and, you're lined up in a room and they tell one man, go, go clean up that garage, or go clean up that shed, or go out and pick that fruit, and and the person tells them to go to hell, and they kill him, you're going to rebel if they can kill you immediately? The truth is, what good is rebelling if they can take things away from you? Right now, if you rebel in any kind of way, they can debank you. They can destroy you economically. And how well can you resist if you don't have any money? You can't fight a successful. You can't run a successful campaign or win any kind of war without finances. You think you can build your own? Try it. Try building your own with no money and no nothing. Now, I understand that some people will stay off the grid, but on average, they're the weakest. And if you fortify your home, you're weak too. If you're under attack, the worst place to be is in your home, because they know exactly where you're at, and they can just pinpoint and target you and destroy your house and your home. So you certainly do not want to go there. And it's just good to be intelligent and argue with logic and reason, and find people who want to argue with logic and reason. Even if someone disagrees with me, if they come to me with logic and reason and they're polite, and I will agree with certain points of logic and reason. Other points I disagree with. I don't see those points. But I try to give respect sight unseen, and then a person has to earn my disrespect. I'm trying to do that. I don't always succeed. I myself get triggered when I hear arrogant and foolish things and I want to lash out. Like when I had a family member put something on Facebook, which was, calling, and she's white, a person of European descent, uh, having a person, a meme saying, I won't use the word colonizer, I use the word colonizer. And it was just with the A at the end, kind of like the N word with the, not with a hard R, but with the A. And of course, this person will never have her views challenged. The person happens to be an atheist, but on this one, on the wokeness, it is her faith and her religion, and she will not have that challenged at all. And man, I struggle myself. I struggle with hard work, with self-discipline. I don't drink or smoke, but I do struggle with food just because I'm diabetic. And I can't even indulge like a normal person anymore. I would like to fast more, but every time I go to fast, the hunger gets the better of me. And I've yet to find a doctor who believes in it. It right now. It's all outside of the norm. This Dr. Fung fasting, but it is something that I'm rather interested in. And Joe, if you are there, you can jump in at any time. But I guess he's.
I'm here. When, Crimea River. Okay, so I read something interesting, and I've been seeing this more and more that disease and a lot of what's commonly considered to be food related malnutrition or disease or is mostly fictitious. The one thing we should control in our bodies is our acid levels. And once our acid levels are out of balance, all sorts, depending on body types and genetics and the whole thing, it's a direct impact as relative to the acidic levels in your body. So always good to check, your pH levels and basically finding the holistic doctors that can measure your acidic levels. It's the number. It is basically cancer to live a life with completely processed foods and the other foods that contribute to high acid levels. So if there's one thing to check, I would definitely, if you don't know, I would go and find out. I personally have in the past had high levels of acid, acid intake, and I changed my diet. My acid levels are far better now. They have been for years, but it's definitely something to monitor.
I do find it when I do fast, and the less that I eat, that hunger does make me more. It not only helps my body, but my mind as well. The less that I eat, and if I am able to get a good exercise, and I work up a sweat, I get those natural endorphins going. That is simply amazing. And one of the things that people should do if they're angry is really do a rigorous workout and have a shower. And it's good to have a communal people. I mean, if you can only do it yourself, but it's good to have a community of people to be around you to really like before you go out and get that anger, if you can, talk about it, but even write about it, and listen to the way you sound and hear the way you sound, because when you're angry and you feel self-righteous, those are the times when you can also be most wrong. And I've heard plenty of therapists, like who are into couples therapy, that people are shocked at how they come across on film when they see themselves. I remember watching one counseling session when the marriage counseling, and the wife was looking at herself, and she said to herself, "I didn't realize how selfish I was." And we have these modern tools to see what what we look like and how we come across to others, because it's almost like when you hear yourself for the first time, it's a shock to you because you don't realize how you sound, and then you kind of get used to it. But I think, filming yourself uh, on a stream, and just if you can just see it for yourself, how you come across, because people will often say, listen to yourself, and when you're full of self-righteous anger, you're not listening to yourself. And it's a good thing to do before you go into a tirade. We have these modern tools. We have tape recorders. We have devices that act like a tape recorder, that we can record ourselves, and we can hear how we come across to other people and to other human beings. And I wonder if Joe has any comment on that.
I am. You went out on some of that, so I didn't hear the whole message there. I don't know if you could paraphrase it again.
Well, I did. I just kind of said that people should basically look at themselves on film, and I mentioned how I watched.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the best experiences I ever had was my training for one of my jobs, my most current job, and I was highly supervised during that training, and I had about 3,000 clinically supervised hours where I was recorded. At times, I was filmed, and it took darn near most of that 3,000 hours to overcome a lot of those sort of inhibitions. But by the end of that 3,000 hours and getting critiqued and discussing word usage and how I carried myself and conducted myself with, in these sort of uh, in that sort of atmosphere, which is really stressful. It wasn't a natural state for me, but you still get the impact. And by the end of that, I was so much stronger at being able to deliver the message that I needed to actively listen and to, just participate more in those sort of deals. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said for it. Not everybody gets that opportunity. I did, and I'm still, obviously, I don't like going on. I'll never like going on camera, uh, but uh, but we're on camera. I guess people should know. I mean, we're on camera all the time anyway. If you're out in public, you're on camera, or at least you could keep in mind that the likelihood of you being on camera at some point while you're out in the public is commonplace now, and there's just thousands of cameras everywhere. So it's something to get to understand that even though you may feel super comfortable getting up and going to the market, um, I bet if people realize just how many cameras pointed at them, it might be a shock at first, but then you kind of return to your baseline and conduct all your things as usual, which we all do for the most part, anyways. But it is a shock, but it's important for people to kind of go through that and get that critique, or to hear themselves, and you start to eliminate a lot of the unnecessary aspects of language or mannerisms. So yeah, definitely a huge thing.
And this is something also you can do on your own as well. But I mean, and it's something that you can maybe even do in as a group, where you can just look at yourself and observe it, and just be self-critical. It's kind of like a coach watching a game or a player watching a game, and just look at it objectively, like how could he have played better? How could he have handled that situation better? And to me, it's like any kind of athletic event. There is no perfect game. There's only improvement, and practice makes improvement. There is no, on average, perfection. There are times when you play as close to a perfect game as you possibly can, but there are always going to be points that you're going to miss, and you're going to not think as well. And there's and the truth is, there will always be armchair quarterbacks who say that they can do it better than you. But if you think you're better, come in and try it, and come under fire, and then see how far you go. And again, I think it's important for people to get to logic and reason. Uh, they have to manage their anger, and if you want others to come to logic and reason, you have to manage your anger. You have to be seen as a stable place, because two angry people are just gonna put off the sides. It doesn't mean being a complete pacifist and a pushover and a slave. You can be firm, but you don't have to be rageful or angry. And at times, you can, avoid them, because if they're just filled with anger, it does no good. So you can walk on the other side of the street, but there are times when people are open to hearing what you have to say as a human being. And if they're not, it's best to avoid and not contend with them. And with that, I'm about to end the show. Joe, do you have anything to say before I end the show?
No, but it was hey there, Mystic Hypnosis. What is that? Is that Nicole? Yeah, thank you to all the people here. I know Donning's been following along, and we got Angela. Seems like a pretty good crowd for a day show, and that's great. We like to get these numbers up a little bit, obviously. So maybe we need to mix it up a little bit. We'll figure out how to do that in the future. But any other plans for another show tonight? Maybe, Brian.
Perhaps there may be a show tonight when I get home.
Perhaps. I'm thinking about doing a little recap here. We just finished a crushing market day, but I'll probably go over some of the financial stuff if I can get that out. I'll do that. Otherwise, yeah, good show, man.
Yeah, and you know what? As much as you can, I really think it's important for people to control their anger. Anger, like hunger, like lust, sometimes it is involuntary, and it is natural to be angry when provoked. But you also, as you grow older, Sometimes you have to realize, yes, I am being provoked, but what is the best solution? Because sometimes fighting, you're just going to lose and cause yourself more pain. Sometimes retreat and avoidance is the smarter and more intelligent way. I'm going to get into how the movies and cinema have made kind of basically have made it harder for males in general, and how thinking you can just stand up to a bully and they're just as afraid of you as you are of them is just a lie. We've been lied to over the years, and we're being lied to now. So society has always been dishonest. The establishment, no matter where it comes from, has always been dishonest. And you have to decipher truth from lies. And that's where I want to go. Anyway, this has been Brian with Transparency and Merit. Like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and thank you for listening. Also visit our website at transparencyandmerit.com.